Okay, Ammon. So we'll skip on topic, and now I want to ask you because when we at the beginning of this project 1 year ago, we started to record all of our dreams, not because we didn't even had our first meeting, and we were already doing it because it was like a joke for us, to be honest. I mean, I was recording my dreams because I was dreaming about everything related with the project, with Stones and Serpents. So I was all the time dreaming some stuff, and I was recording it because when I was younger, like when I was like 15 or 16, I used to be, I like to do that, like to record my dreams and whatever. So I started again, and then I told the crew, and the crew started to do it at the same time we started with the project. And then when we had the first formal meeting, and we were in Malta, I don't know if you remember, I told you about this at the end of our conversation, and I told you that we were recording our dreams, and I remember you told us keep doing that because they were doing that, and it was mandatory to keep track of your dreams in antiquity. So what you meant about that?
It was mandatory for the priests and priestesses to write down all of the dreams that are experienced within the temple sacred precinct. So what they would do is they would have people perform incubations. This is all over the Mediterranean. And it's not just Greek, it's all over. But the idea is that you would enter into a sleep state in order to communicate with the god. So you can enter a mystery and you can be initiated by the god who will speak to you, who will interact with you, who will show you things, who will take you places. You can do that in a mystery operation, or you can do it in a dream. So, in antiquity, on the Greek side, the language gives us kind of a world of dreams that is prophetic. That we have lots of authors who talk about, well, what's the origin really of divine vision? Where does it come from? Its core must be in the dream state. So you get these physicists who will map out, who will say, yeah, the power to dream is the original oracular power that all humans have naturally. Unfortunately, that power can be muted. So in order to maintain a connection with the divine, we need to establish oracles who themselves will be those receptacles for the vision. We don't have to dream it anymore, as is our base technology, right? We can harvest the vision through the oracles. And that's exactly what they're doing in the initiation of the mysteries, which it says in the PGM, in the Christing section, that's the whole process to make that invisible visible right now. So when you go back to the basic method of dreaming, you can be treated in a temple then by a priest or priestess in an incubation where you sleep, you're given drugs, you sleep during the night, and you encounter visions. You then take those visions and you give them to the priest to then determine exactly what it is that, what ails you, what's making you sick. They can tell. What's making you sick? What was the cure that was provided? The God who dwells in the temple, that daimon, that power, has the ability to tell you both what you suffer from and what will cure you. So those elements are a part of your dream. And the priest is there to sit there and kind of interview you and pick out exactly what it was that was given in the dream for you to be able to do. So dreaming and speaking to gods and health are all one one operation.
And just as a golden nugget, what does the incubation like? It has Greek root, the word, the actual word about incubation when we are talking about dreams.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. What language is producing this? It's Greek that's producing this. And the word in Greek is enhupnion, right? It's the combination of the hupnos, the sleep, that state itself, right? With just a little prefix that's going to say, hey, we're going to put you in this state. You're going to be in this state. So incubation comes, that's the Latin. Oh God, those hut dwelling bastards tried to, they had to have their way of saying it too, right? Hey, if you want to exercise someone, you've got to be involved in these incubations, because you're never going to be able to get to the stage of diagnosis without vision, right? Vision is awareness and understanding. So for you to find your own diagnosis, you have to be able to produce that vision. Some practitioners did it with dreams, and some practitioners did it in states of ecstasy, that the PGM is all about and talks about. You'll be able to reproduce this meter, this poetry, with the correct music. And there's even a term for it in the PGM. The music is considered a relaxed tone. So there's a lot of tech here going on in the cult that you don't, it's very difficult to appreciate the whole thing.
Buenas noches. Vengo como emisario del equipo Stones and Serpents. Sean todos bienvenidos. Exactamente hace 6 meses, el día 31 de octubre del año 2025, hicimos nuestra primera publicación en torno a nuestro documental. Durante un live streaming en el canal Lady Babylon con el Dr. Ammon Hillman, estuvimos compartiendo con ustedes nuestro tráiler, exponiendo las primeras imágenes de nuestra expedición. Queremos agradecer a todos ustedes por el interés, por el apoyo y por la gran cantidad de preguntas que hemos recibido. Mientras en este preciso momento nuestro equipo se encuentra en etapa de rodaje, hemos también decidido crear este proyecto que ves ahora, que funciona como una expansión del universo Stones and Serpents. Con esta serie de volúmenes profundizamos en diversos tópicos de interés. Y esta noche, junto al Dr. Ammon, estamos presentando el volumen 4, donde estaremos intentando atravesar hacia el otro lado, hacia lo que no se ve. ¿Qué tecnologías usaron en la antigüedad para hacer visible el invisible? ¿Cómo se accionan las llaves que permiten abrir las puertas del aoratos? ¿Quién está esperando al otro lado y cómo debo comportarme una vez que esté en presencia de ella? Bajar al Hades, manipular a los muertos, recibir la información y traerla de vuelta. Griegos, romanos, sectas cristianas, brujas y templarios, Saturno y Lucifer. Estas son las fascinaciones que atraviesan el tiempo. Bienvenidos a History is Inquiry. Okay, Ammon. So we have been talking about this concept of the invisible that you told us it was the aoratos as a Greek word. Um, can you elaborate a bit of what this will mean in ancient times?
Yeah, the ancient Greek is obsessed with this existence of an unseen world. There are powers and that there are authorities, that there are ways in physics. Things that move the universe are invisible. So the architecture of this invisible universe was important to the pre-Socratics, who took it and turned it into kind of a field of investigation. It became so prominent that even the Septuagint refers to God in the opening of Genesis, right? And says that this God created an earth that was aoratos, formless, right? Not in the sense that it was not, didn't have any material, but that it was invisible. And the Greek uses aoratos for that. It's this invisible world that the Greek language is obsessed with exposing.
So, so you were mentioning the pre-Socratics. We have talked about it before, and can you explain to us what would be pre-Socratic ideas or Socratic ideas, or like what was a pre-Socratic? You know, can you explain to us what that will mean?
Sure. So you have a whole bunch of material philosophers who precede Plato, and they talk about things like what is the natural element that composes the universe as we know it? What are the basic functional units of the cosmos? And so there's a lot of physics in pre Socratic, what we call pre Socratic philosophy. And one of the branches of physics that the pre Socratics are interested in is the capacity to visualize the invisible. What is that process all about? How do you come ultimately to learn about the things that we pre Socratics are sitting around and saying, hey, there are these atomoi, these atoms that are down there on the very lowest level of existence. How do you get down to that invisible world? You have to get there through the logos, and that's what they're driving in the pre-Socratic intellectual world. They're driving the derivation of an understanding of all existence. Let me give you an example. What people are curious about is the harmony of the cosmos. What is the tension of the bow that brings us harmony? So you assume when you're sitting there and you start to read these different Greek authors, like different pre Socratic authors, you assume that they're thinking about the natural world in the same way, and they're not. For example, they combine an understanding of music and the nature of being. So you can take those two ideas, kind of a philosophical or spiritual idea, and you can combine it with a very concrete idea that allows you to analyze. So it's like you can take something that is a concept and turn it into material. That's what this pre Socratic mind is trying to do in Greek. Now, this doesn't characterize any other groups of different language groups that are in the area. This is particular to Greek. And it's why the music vocabulary that you and I use and the scientific vocabulary that you and I use is all based on the Greek. It's not based on anybody else. So,
Okay, Amon. So going back to the first concept of the aoratos, or the invisible, or this other reality. I don't know how to call it, to be honest. But so this is an idea that appears with this pre-Socratic thinking, or comes from before, or what do the text says to us?
you can't say that it definitely starts at this period because you can see as old as the Mycenaean interest in Dionysus, um, with his digamma that he's got, and the fact that this is a real Mycenaean concept. Dionysus is all about the enthusiasmos, right? That state of elevated thinking, the state that you enter when you leave this plane, when you leave this reality, and enter the visionary state where you go to the third heaven with Paul the Apostle, right? This is the tech that they're using, and the Greek vocabulary that describes that tech is all very specific and very straightforward. So I think it behooves us, it helps us to take a look at the Mycenaean enthusiastic mystery. Right? It's why we always go back to that oldest form that we have in the linear B. Right? That's our earliest evidence for the practice of this mystery. It's completely contemporary with Medea, and it is fits in perfectly with the literature that we get through the Kitharodes and the Epodes and the Homers and all of the Archilochoi, right? Archilochus. It's these people that are passing on this knowledge and this learning and this capacity in the Greek. And so that's, um, the world that you need to consider is a world where music and medicine and religion are the same thing.
Okay, so but just to put it in, like to put it in simple words, when we talk about this parallel, or this unseen, which will be the autos. So what I'm getting is like, well, it comes from, we cannot know, but we can infer where it's coming from. Then we get the pre-Socratic ideas about this place. It is a place where it is. Could you give us like a simple? I guess it's difficult to give a simple like definition of it, but what they were when they will say auratos, or this invisible, this place that you are going, and I guess it's the same place that they were referring to after, where the oracles were going to get some intel or some information or something like that, isn't it? We're talking about this same place, or I have this confusion. Can you elaborate on it?
Sure, we need the magic to be able to bridge the gap between the seen and the unseen. And that's where the pharmakeia comes in. The pharmakeia, the sorcery, the use of the drugs becomes the mechanism that we can finally jump over into the invisible, because the invisible is just as real as the visible. There is an understanding at the time, because of the Orphics, there is an understanding that music and the proportion undergird all of nature. They make up all of nature. These proportions are logical. They can be examined. They can be manipulated. For example, the string. You can manipulate the tension on the string. You can change the tone. And in doing so, you can create a language that has magical music associated with the very pronunciation of the words. So the pronunciation of the words that includes their musical tone has an effect on the invisible to make it visible. This is the activity, they would say, of our god Ion. Ion is the invisible, right? So when you have, as a magus, when you have ionic life as a generated potential. So in other words, I can tell somebody, look, hey, let's meet after school, right? And I've got some drugs and whatnot, and I can take you to a place where you will enter into a new existence that is the invisible. I will make the invisible visible. I will give you ionic life. Right? We would both take it. Right? Of course we would. Let's go. I want to see what this dimension is. And that's what these oracles all over the Greek speaking world, that's what they're focusing on.
I'm sorry I interrupt you, but I cannot not make the question because we have been hearing in the conversations about the ionic life, and
Hello, crew. Greetings from the road. I just wanted to communicate that we just opened our Stones and Serpents Patreon. We are now constantly uploading different audiovisual materials. Some are free and some are not. We are sharing SNS behind the scenes, raw footage of the current Eastern expedition, official soundtracks, and even collections of future productions like shortcuts and documentaries. Finally, I would like also to encourage all of you to become a part of the Explorer chat. It's free and gives us a good platform to engage in research. Please feel free to scout the different modalities, from free member to an Explorer membership or Territory Explorer, or even a Pathfinder membership where we can co-produce and open a direct contact with the SNS production board to even create new projects and to do what we all love the most, to explore new territories. We're an independent production company, and this is part of our organic growth. So we deeply appreciate your support. Thank you all. And again, greetings from the crew.
well, I guess the phrase that I most remember, it will be like a place out of time. So just in a nutshell, like a golden nugget, before we continue with the interview, what will be the difference between ionic life and eternal life?
Right. That's a gorgeous question. Eternal life, life without end, right? Ionic life is the invisible life. Let me give you an example. So, eros, the desire that exists between two people that is sexual. That is an invisible reality. You cannot see it. You cannot track what goes between two people's eyes when they conceive of sexual desire. Yet there is an invisible world that is propelling that motion forward so that we have sexual union, because that's how we get life. So there is an invisible architecture that can be manipulated by the magus. And this is why, I can't tell you, this is why so many magi were executed in antiquity or exiled, because of their effective power over the invisible. Because remember, the invisible is running the kingdoms. So when an emperor consults with an astrologer, they're consulting with their highest educated people. And these are the people who are exposed to all the history. These are the people who are exposed to the writing. These are the people who know the magic song, the satanic Bacchic song. They know that. And it's what they practice, not as a religion, not as a cult, but as a philosophy of education and life. It's Saturnian religion. It's Saturnian over and over again. Satan is Saturn. It is Saturnian religion that was itself overcome by Christianity. So, yeah, fantastic.
Well, I'll keep going. I have a bunch of questions about that, but
Yes.
let's just try to keep going with the schedule here. So, okay, so as if we take this idea that we were talking about this other reality, is related, I guess, with this place the oracles were going, or like, what is the relation of the oracles and these aoratos? It would be fair to think, or like, it will make sense to think that this place was the same place that the oracles were engaging with.
Yeah, remember, the oracles have sexual relations with the god, right? In all of the backstories, in all of these different Apollonian oracles, behind all of this curtain of right is a relationship between a singer and the god. So that the very Bacchic rite itself is this. It's the relationship between the singer, that is Tione, the mother of Dionysus, and the god, the Zeus. The lightning is what is brought. And that's all the oracle is doing. But the Greek-speaking world, in all different ethnicities, described that as a sexual relationship. And it's part of the reason that the Christians said idolatry is a sexual act, right? It's a sexual act because it was, right? Imagine if you took your church to the level of the communion being the ejaculate of the host, and that was the actual transubstantiation that took place in that woman's body, or a eunuch. You can get a eunuch too. Sorry. Yeah.
So we're inferring that you will get a eunuch or a woman, but seems to be virgins at the same time. So could you elaborate in the idea of, like, there is a sexual relationship with the god, but she seems to be a virgin. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah. She has to come to the point of that orgiastic climax. She has to find. There's a reason that the word orgy is for us, the kind of idea of a sex party. But originally, it is the performance of the religious act. So this goes way, way back. This is deeply rooted. You cannot have these Bacchic satanic mysteries without the sex act. There must be an orgiastic orgasmon. There has to be an orgasm. There has to be the creation of seed. And not just from a man, but they considered it seed from a woman as well. That ejaculate that a woman has is a seed in the very same way that a male's ejaculate is a seed. So they are looking at the performance of that sexual magic as the bridge for the invisible. We bring it out. I told you Eros can't be seen, but you can see the effects of Eros. You can see the effects of that attraction, for example, that two people will get for each other, or a repulsion that one will get when the other one has an attraction. Those forces are what are being the invisible powers that the Magus, through the Logos, through the song, through the expression, the verbal expression, is able to control. I can control you with aphrodisiacs. If there's one thing I can tell you from antiquity, of all the Greek that I've read, the most popular topic is drugging somebody into sex. So this is a part of the rite. And for the person to reach the point where they emit seed is the platform that launches us into the invisible. For some reason, I don't know why, Bruno, but for some reason, they had to have the mind in orgasm under the influence of these death inducers in order to get you to the world of the invisible, in order to that spiritual realm. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And actually, is question I've been asking you for the past 6 months in different ways. So I'll ask you again, like how we, how we can do you have, because yeah, you will think like, of course, a feeling of an orgasm at the same time, that inducer, because I'm thinking about a situation that's going on at the same time. So it feels like completely overwhelming to like have all of these elements happening to yourself in, I don't know, like half an hour. But what I mean is like, do we have like some kind of example or with the text that we can talk about this, or like orgasm drugged with the dead inducer on you and all of this at the same time? Do we have some accounts about this situation that we can just create an imaginary image in, just to try to understand like why this person will be feeling, I guess?
Yeah, you can reconstruct it, but you have to start with the most non-theoretical, the most practical, the most, substantive, I guess you'd say. And that's the drugs. Once you look at different drugs that are being used in rites, then you start looking for words that will betray the activities that the cult participant is performing in. So we have all of these wonderful little descriptions. For example, there is the Black Sphinx who takes the scroll and inserts it in her vagina. On the scroll, in the very same text, on the scroll is written the song in an ink that is medicated. She is placed during this whole rite with a male child. She is called the pederast. Right? Her reaching her climax is the production of her song. There is some kind of music mechanics that when a person is in the height of their ecstasy, their natural physical sexual ecstasy, there's a way to bring song. It's what the oracles are doing. It is a sex act that can and must use an intermediary. The vehicle or the instrument is that priestess. It's her that's being tuned to the universe. So again, you don't think of sex, we don't, in moderns, I don't know, maybe somebody does, but you don't think of the sex act as a musical performance, despite the fact that we associate very specific vocalizations with the act of having intercourse. So the orgiastic release, that little death, is absolutely programmed into the mystery. Remember, all of this has to do with what? An induction of death followed by a resurrection. We're going to put you through a process of dying and being born again. So, the mystery is not an operation that explains all of ancient religion. No, it's one very specific rite meant to pierce that veil between the visible world and the invisible world. Those two realities can be brought together, and the person that does that is the initiate. So the power of that woman, that, let me say this, there was a great priest, Plutarch, in antiquity, and Plutarch had oracle friends, and one of his oracle friends he shared letters with, and he talked to her about the sacred rite that is female sexuality, not masculine. The sacred rite that is female sexuality. And he describes so elegantly how this is a rite natural to every woman, and that it can be brought out and mastered and put into a cult in order to lead. And that cult would be visionary. That cult could create lines of priestesses whose bodies could perform the same mystery. Remember, it's their seed that is life. Even when Jesus refers to his going back to that origin, that life, that bread of life that gives us the renewal, right? These are references to mystery cults that are using human body fluids and rites that are sexual, drug-induced rites to bring you to a place that you cannot go otherwise. The priestess is there to harness her special voice in the cosmos.
What is, who is Lucifer?
Lucifer is the best looking. He's going to bring you to orgasm. And when you go there, your eyes will be opened. This is the way. It's part of nature. And it is there for your benefit, because the archon that rules your world is a child trafficking, child raping reflection of your reality. That balance between the mirror, between the image that you're looking at and your actual skin, is what is your present. So we as a collective group are experiencing that invisible magic around us to the extent that we are drawing the satanic epithumia, that desire of the Great Mother to destroy the child and bring the adult. That desire of the dragon to consume the seed of the virgin. Those eidola can be expressed in the reality around you. And that's what we do. That's what we're here to do. If we're going to keep Tartarus going, then we're going to have to make the invisible visible. So It's you can see the philosophy
Yeah, yeah.
behind.
Well, it's connected with everything where we have been talking. Um, but let's say if somebody will see just 20 seconds now of an answer, who is Lucifer?
Lucifer is the one who refuses to lie. Lucifer is the standard of justice. Lucifer is the one who exposes you to the rays of the sun. Think about that for a minute. You're not a human of the 21st century with computers and cars. You're a fucking living organism looking at your world, seeing the sun, and that sun illuminates. It gives you an understanding even of yourself as you look at yourself in the rays of the sun and you construct that magic mirror, that Bacchic mirror in front of you to see, who am I? Everything in your life is that question. Who am I? The mystery is the healing that you have to have. It's how the cycle works. It's why you're here. It's why I'm here. It's why little babies get blown up. It's why old people set themselves on fire. It's why we kill each other in the streets. Suicide by cop. It's why that's there. So remember, the invisible world shows you the connections. If you could see it, you would understand how Eros works. You can't see it, Bruno. I can't see it. I haven't been through it. I haven't seen the great risen dead. I haven't seen her. Right? This process, the one message I would like to really get across is this process is a natural religious process, a process of knowledge, education, and liberation. That's how they expressed it. Liberation. It will free you from your own unreality. It'll give you the reality. Now, I can send that to you, Bruno. I can send that in a magical form, or I can send that to the whole world. Do you see why Magi got executed? When Jesus and his apostles are operating, they're being accused of being Magi all over the Apocrypha. Why? Because they are bringing the images of reality. They are controlling everyone from a distance, right? Whether that distance is in time or not, Jesus has his hand up your backside, my backside. That's how the magic works. It's ionic. It is not chronic. It's ionic, right? You would know that if you had been initiated and had seen, or you would know that if you read what those who had been initiated and seen, what they had experienced. So you and I can benefit. We can still see that invisible world. We can still learn how to manipulate that invisible world. Right? But we're doing it in a secondary, kind of like we're feeding off the radiation rather than getting the original energy source. We're just feeding off the, little bits of radiation. So, but it's still magic, and it still can manipulate the world around you. Let me put it this way. One of the things that the Bacchic Maenads produced, not only this language, they produced this language for being Bacchic, and we can't even translate that. But one of the things that they produced was this awareness, this awareness of this power, this ability to control from a distance. that was so scary that their political manipulation became obvious as a means of spreading insanity. What am I trying to say? The magical power that I want to tell you about that's in these texts, that's consistent, that's usable, is the induction of mania. Bacchic maenads can make you crazy. Dionysus, in leading you to Aphrodite, can make you crazy. They can turn up the heat. They can cause you. And why do they need to do this? Because that's how ecstasy works. You can enter ecstasy and kill your whole family. Do you understand? This is not good and evil. This is the natural processes of the universe. You can enter into ecstasy and slaughter your family.
Like Heracles.
Exactly. And who is the Magus? Heracles is the Magus. Right? So that's a necessity. That insanity, that murderous insanity, is a necessary byproduct of the cult of Bacchus. And as a Magus, you can induce this insanity. You can create it. You can bring somebody to a place without talking to them visibly. You can bring them to a place of insanity. Why? Because think about it. If I've been there, or I've been with somebody who's been there, and I know how to pull these strings, I know how to cause, oh, look, if you pull here, that person is affected over there. I know eventually how to affect the people around me, and I become dangerous. And the Romans want me the fuck out of Rome when I get to this level of development. And that's how it's described. It's a fostering, a development of your awareness. Once you become aware of pulling these strings, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to walk into that interview and she's going to sit there across from you, start asking you questions and turn into an orgasmic, screaming mess of joy. Right? Because you know all the strings. That's the power of the Magus, and that's the power that the religion. And again, look, it's about sex. Yes, Bacchus leads to Aphrodite. And if Aphrodite is God, think about it. If Aphrodite is God, you want to have sex. It's not something you do as a guilty pleasure. It's something that you do to make yourself healthy. Imagine if having sex could make you healthy. People should be having healthy things that they're doing with each other. Add some dance and some music, and we've got fucking ancient choruses, democratic choruses with female leaders of oracles who were guiding the world to democracy. And how is this all happening? Through an act of sex guided by plants and animal toxins. It's completely natural, organic, 100% beauty.
100% organic and beautiful. And so, Ammon, so when we say Lucifer, like in the common conversation, of course you will relate it with the same idea of Satan, I guess. So
Eosphoros, if you want Lucifer at its source, Eosphoros. I was just talking about Lucifer. When I mentioned Aphrodite, I was talking about Lucifer. Remember Venus, the morning star? That's Lucifer. So you think devil, Lucifer, Satan, and you think one way because of how we are programmed. They are putting all sorts of different images together. And when they thank Lucifer, they thank the bringer of dawn, which is a specific invisible entity within the Aoratos.
That's perfect, Ammon, because that's the question as is written. It's like, so we can relate all of this conversation about the aoratos with this energy or entity, which now we call Lucifer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. And did you know the Romans had a version they called Lucifera? And that was Artemis. She was their dawn bringer, right? Because they understood the Aphroditic nature of the dawn bringer. They understood that Venus was Venus, right? They didn't think male devil, right? They understood the invisible element. She is the epithumia. She is the desire. And that's the energy, the energeia of Satan is that desire. So, same person.